All right. Hi, everybody. Chris Petri here. Thanks for coming by and painting and drawing with us here on my channel. We're going to do a beautiful Western scene here. We're going to cover all the details you need on this video. We're actually going to create a preliminary sketch painting. We're going to kind of go over the glazing technique, actually, where we're going to do a quick glazing practice run before we do our final glazing here on our painting. So that is really going to help us a lot. You'll see how going through a practice run on your painting will actually really help a lot with your technique and your methods with watercolor. We'll go over all the details of how to paint this. We're going to do this again in the glazing technique, which means first wash is going to be that light sky wash with the blue, the pinks, the oranges, the yellows, the gold colors, sunset. This is going to be a beautiful sunset painting. Once that all completely 100% dries, then we're going to take our sepia tone paint, which we have here. It's a tube of Winsor Newton sepia tone paint. We're going to put that onto the final details, the darker washes, the second glazing of our painting here, and you'll see how we do all of these details. We'll also cover the drawing in the beginning of the painting, how to get those beautiful mountains in and the structures here, and some of the distant ranch houses and some of the roadway and different bushes and cactuses and things like that. So we're going to have a great time. Join along with this here. Have a good time with this. It's always a process, so as we work together, you'll put all the pieces together and figure things out as we go. And again, I'll describe everything I'm doing so that you have pretty much a good, strong idea of how to do each of the parts of this painting so that everything comes out to your liking. Okay, so we'll just get started in just a second. All right, so we're going to get started, and as we do this painting, we're going to recall that we're going to do the glazing technique. So that's a technique I use quite often. Usually I'm really working with two techniques in mind, methods and techniques. That would be the glazing technique. We're going to do that right now for this painting. And I also use the alla prima technique, which is basically starting just in one location in the painting, usually the focal point, and then painting out from there, and not really doing maybe, let's say, a first glazing or a first wash, and then washes over the top of that. So that's what we're going to do here. The glazing technique, which again is real simple, it's just getting like a lighter wash. Your lighter wash is on the paper first, letting that dry, and then going over the top of that lighter wash with your second and even perhaps your third washes of darker tonal values, darker colors, darker mixes of paint, and then you build up your painting from light to dark. And that's so those are the two main methods and techniques I use. I cover it in my book too. You'll see a link down below in my book. I cover it extensively in my book, so you'll kind of learn both techniques in a real profound way. If you're purchasing my book and working in all the exercises in my book, you will definitely, by the time you're done working through all the exercises in my book, you'll have it down pat as far as using either the glazing technique or the alla prima technique. Both of them I use all the time. Sometimes I use them interchangeably. I might use partial amounts of each of those methods and techniques as I work through a painting. It all depends. So once you learn both techniques separately in your painting process, then eventually it just becomes like second nature, like riding a bicycle, driving a car, any kind of sports activities or musical instruments. Once you learn the basic fundamentals of things and you've worked with it for a number of months or even a couple of years, you just get the feel of it, and then you really don't think about it much. You just go in and you kind of work with it, and it tends to just work out beautifully as you go. So again, the glazing technique here we're going to employ. I'll start out with just a quick note on the glazing technique here, but before we do that, let's get the drawing done. Actually, let's get our sketch in first. So I'm just going to do a basic. I'm going to do this, improv. I'm just going to improv this. I don't have any pictures or photographs or anything like that I'm working from. I'm just kind of going to get this started here, and I'm just thinking of kind of like a beautiful Western kind of sunset feel. Maybe some distant mountains, maybe like a saloon or a building or two, like a Western country store, Western storefronts. But I'll kind of just go along here as we work this out. The main thing I wanted to do is make a large sky and keep my horizon line low in this painting. So what I'll do is, if you can imagine, we have it's a 6x9, so we have 6 inches high by 9 inches wide. That's our rectangle that we're working within right now. And everything just works within the rectangle. Sometimes you work in a square format too. But this is what we have to work within here. Everything's going to happen right here in this rectangle. And then we're going to make that decision. Let's make this horizon line for our distant mountains very low in the painting. We want a really big sky here in this painting, so that's what we're going to go for. So if we said this is 6 inches here for our height of our rectangle, like so, 6 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 inches is halfway. And then 1.5 inches is a quarter of the way. So I think a quarter, I'm going to just say for a 6-inch height on my rectangle here, I'm going to go with just not even quite an inch. I'm going to go about 3/4 of an inch up. It's going to vary a little bit with the mountains and things, but I'm just going to go a little bit. So I would say 1/6 up from the bottom of my painting is going to be, if it's 6 inches high, 1 inch up is going to be approximately my height for my horizon line here. So we're going to make that, and I'll even just make it a little bit darker so we can kind of see here. This is going to be our horizon line for our mountains and our road and our buildings that we have. So you can see that's just a very, very small amount. And then we're going to have a huge sky wash. We're going to do a beautiful glazing first wash with lots of beautiful colors, sunset colors. And let's see now, we have this first 1 inch, like so. And then this is 5 inches up here to the top. So 5 inches, 1 inch. That's about the ratio. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but if you have a larger paper, you're just going to kind of remember that you're maybe, the 1/6 ratio. So if you have 1/6, you're going to be pretty good. You can do it by feel too. You just want to keep this really low in your rectangle, your mountains. So let's start out our distant mountains. So I'm just going to do some distant mountains, a couple valleys going down. Now for the road, we're going to have a beautiful road coming into the picture. I would say if we were to go halfway across the picture and make like a center line, so if we went exactly halfway across the painting, we made a center line like that. And I'm just approximating about the center. Maybe we can see how much, we could just quickly measure this across and see. We said this was 9 inches across, and it's about 9.5, 9.25, 9.5 inches. So half of 9 is 4.5 inches. So I was pretty close. So that's good. So this is halfway across the rectangle, going horizontally across, about halfway. And then I would say let's make the road. We're going to make a road here going into the painting. Let's make that left of center. So if this is the center point of this horizontal plane going across this way, we're going to take our road and make it to the left. So we're going to make the road here kind of straight, plumb line there, a straight line, vertical line just like that, up. Then we're going to take another line here and we're going to angle it this way so that we feel like we're coming into the scene, like on a road coming in to the picture. And then we're going to widen this out quite a bit. We're going to maybe go halfway. So let's take another quick measurement here. We're going to do some hash marks here. I hope you don't mind that. If we're doing some hash marks to get our positions of where we're going to be with our lines. So again, we said the halfway mark was going to be the vertical line for the road here, and we're going to have a building over here on this line, and then the road is going to be on this side going into the picture this way. So let's make the widest part of the road where it's closest to us about halfway, maybe a little more than halfway between this half of the painting here. So halfway between here and here is approximately where we want to put that line for our road going into this, like that. And that's the road coming into, angling into the picture space. And we have our mountains here, of course. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a building here, and we're going to drop the bottom of the building about here. So we're going down a little bit below that distant point there. So if you can imagine, we have a point here. That's the farthest distance of the road. And then we're going to take our building and we're going to make the bottom of the building below that distant point there. So about here. And then maybe there's some other things over here. There might be some cows and cattle over here. And there might be some brush and things like this. So we're going to leave this kind of loose and suggestive. We're not going to get really too fancy with things. We're just going to try to get ourselves familiar with using the glazing technique and having a fun time with it. And so again, we do have this building, and I would say I'm going to make the building just a touch above that furthest distant point for that first. We'll make like a roof line here. So that'll be a roof line there. And then we'll make another roof here. And you can have a fun time. You can make different looking roofs if you want for your buildings. You can look at photographs and kind of, you can always research buildings like saloons, maybe ranches. You can make a ranch building, things like that. Like you can change this design of this building if you want a little bit. But we're just going to go with the basic kind of like saloon with some roofing here on the roofs, some darks up here. We're just going to put some pencil in for our darks. And what I'll do maybe is I'll zoom in a little more in just a second so we can kind of see the drawing a little bit closer here. The reason I don't like to zoom in and out quite a bit on my paintings when I'm making videos and creating these tutorials is really simple. When I adjust the zoom in and out, it can affect the focus of the camera, my video camera. So then if I start to adjust the zoom in and out, it can sometimes throw off the clarity of the video. So then you'll be looking at the video and everything might turn out being very blurry right in the middle of the video because I'm kind of zooming things in and out with my camera. So it's just a process you might, if you're eventually going to make some videos on your own and start your own channel with YouTube or other video channels like Rumble, and there's lots of video channels out there you can create videos on, art videos. But if you do decide to get into creating your own videos, just remember, you're going to come into these situations where you'll have challenges with your camera and your camera equipment and things like this. Not to worry at all. You just have to work with it and do the best you can with it. It's not always easy, but not too difficult either. So, all right. So we got our kind of like a saloon-looking type thing here, and we'll have some more darks over here. This might be some bushes, and there's maybe a distant hill in the background here, a dark hill. And then we'll have our mountain coming up too here. So our mountain's going to come up here. Going across there, and then there's maybe another bit of a mountain up here. Like that. So you can kind of see I just have a distant mountain working in the background here. And then closer to us we have the saloon, This might be a saloon or a store, a Western store here along this road. And then we might have a couple lines in the road. And then we just want to make sure we keep this line pretty straight, going across the distant line across the painting. So I might just take my ruler here and just kind of, since I created my line here, I'm just going to stick with that. Like that. So you can kind of see how I have that really good, strong, distant, kind of the planes. So the planes, the distant horizon line is the plains where it meets the mountains, the bottom of the mountains, and then you have the bottom of the mountains here. And we might be able to make a small building there to give us a feel of some distance there, like that. Maybe over here too we can make another building there. That might be a ranch. And we'll do some brush work. We'll use our brush to be creative and just make some brush and trees, and we'll use our paintbrush to make some little trees and maybe a couple cactuses, and we'll do some interesting verticals here. We'll do some cactuses maybe, and some fence posts and things like that. We're not going to get too fancy. We just want to sort of get the feel for the glazing technique first, and secondly, just putting together a good, nice composition here where we do some pencil lines, we do some hash marks, we lay things out. These are the things we kind of always do when we're doing watercolor. We want to make sure we get our rectangle in place. We know we're going to work within this area. Then we're going to go in and we're going to figure out, well, where are we going to put our subject matter? Here the subject matter is the mountains, the saloon, the road. And then the only thing I noticed is since I adjusted a few things in this painting, I noticed that I have a little bit of an issue with the road. So what I'll do is I'll erase the road right now, the lines, and you'll have this when you're doing work. Sometimes when you're working, you're going to have some challenges and some problems that crop up. Don't worry about it. Let it be. So we have that road coming in again. The only thing now is this is our new horizon line where that road is going to end in the furthest distance. So that's about there. So then we can just take our original line, and you can see that the original line was about here. We're just going to move it down. So we took the original line that's here, and we just noticed as we were working and we started creating our horizontal lines for our furthest distance, the plains, the horizon line of the plains where they meet up with the mountains, we noticed that our road, the line that's going into the picture for our road, it was a little bit too much on an angle this way, pitched too much this way. So we want to bring it down this way where the ruler is, like that. So I'm just adjusting that line so that it ends up pretty much where the bottom of this building is. Bottom of the building is really there, a little bit higher, but you can kind of get the feel for that we wanted to keep that roadway closer into the bottom of this building versus trailing off into the mountains. So that's just a bit of a minor adjustment that you can make really easily. All right, so we've done a lot of work so far. This is a perfect time to take a quick break, and then when we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a little bit of paint first and kind of just go over how we're going to determine what colors we're going to use. We can take a scrap piece of paper, and we'll work on maybe just doing a dry run of the sky wash that we're going to do for the whole glazing. That first glazing we talked about, we're using the glazing method. We'll talk about the glazing, the first wash that goes over the whole entire sheet of paper, watercolor paper, and then after that we will go in and do the first glazing of the finished painting. But we want to do a dry run first, And this way we can work out what colors we're going to use, and kind of, if we do it one time on a scrap piece of paper, it'll go a lot easier on the finished painting. We just have to be careful as we're doing this that we don't splash and make a mess on our paper here. So what I'll do is I'll put a sheet of printer paper over the top of our painting here while we're doing this first practice run for our glazing. So we'll be right back in just a second, and we'll get started with our preliminary dry run of our sky wash. Okay, be right back in a second. All right, we are back. We're going to get started with our dry run for our sky wash, our first glazing. So I have a scrap piece of paper. Just sometimes if I'm creating paintings and I'll use the back of the paper for another painting, or sometimes I'll use the back of my paper for like this type of thing here, like a quick sketch. And this is the some printer paper. I just want to put the printer paper over my finished drawing here. You don't have to really do this so much in your studio, because I think, or your house, or your home, wherever you're working, because you might have more room. I'm working here under a video camera, so I only have so much room. So that's why I want to just make sure I don't spill over onto the canvas, the watercolor paper we're working on. So we're going to take this paper, we'll just tape it down real quickly, just so it doesn't move around. So I'll just do one tape there, one tape down here. And then I guess for the first wash, you can use, I think, any type of like 1 inch or maybe like a 2 inch or 1.5 inch brush. That's fine. Square brush is fine. You can use a mop brush. You can basically use about any type of brush you would like for your first wash, as long as it's somewhat sizable. So you wouldn't want to try to do your first wash with a round brush like this, right? That whole entire canvas, trying to do it with this, it's not going to be effective at all. You need something of good size like this, at least minimum this. So you'd want to use something like this. Makes it a little easier, something a little larger. This is a 30 millimeter brush, Da Vinci square brush, flat brush. And this is a, I guess this is probably about a 15 millimeter flat brush. This is a Sterling Edwards flat brush. This is synthetic. This works great too. So these are both synthetic brushes. So these are the size you're going to probably want. Maybe we'll do this first with the Sterling Edwards brush for the first wash. So I'm just going to get some fresh clean water in my water bucket. That's all set, ready to go. Then I'm going to basically mix up my colors. We can kind of do it in a real systematic way. We're going to say, let's do our cool colors here. So let's do our cerulean blue here. I think cerulean blue is fine. That's going to really be our main blue. And again, we're going to keep this kind of simple. We're not going to get too complicated with our mixes. So I'm going to have a decent amount of blue. You can kind of see that's a fair amount of water and a fair amount of paint. But toward the lighter tonal value. It's not super thick paint. It's a mixture of water and paint with a good amount of water. Then we're going to probably go with some alizarin crimson here, like this. Beautiful sunset color there. And then maybe some cadmium yellow over here on this side here. And you can mix in a little bit of alizarin crimson and the cadmium yellow. And I think between these three colors you have it. You really don't have to do a whole lot more to pre-mix on your palette. I think that's going to be fine. You have your three colors: cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and cadmium yellow. Then the next thing we're going to do is take our fresh clean water, and we're just going to put a light coating of water, fresh clean water, onto our practice paper here, across the way here, across the whole paper. A light wash. You want to dampen the paper. You don't want to flood the paper out. You just want to dampen it. so that when you put the washes on, they're going to all flow and mix and mingle together. All of the washes that we're going to use, all the colors. Okay, so there we go. This is basically our dry run. We're doing this first just so we kind of practice, so that when we go to our final painting underneath here, and we're going to do this same process again, we're just going to do it the second time, we'll be a little more familiar with it. We'll be able to kind of be more familiar with the colors. We're just going to repeat the same process on the finished painting underneath, but let's do a practice run first. So the first thing is we're going to start up top. We're going to start up top on the sky wash up top. Let's do that. So I just get plenty of wash and start the sky wash up top. Look at that, how beautiful that is. Beautiful blue. You could put a little bit of the orange and red in that blue up top a little bit. That wouldn't hurt anything, but it'd have to be very, very little. Okay. And then we will go next with the red, the alizarin crimson. And go right across with the alizarin crimson. We're thinking sunset right now. This is a beautiful sunset painting. And it's our first glazing, light wash. We're not going with super dark, thick paint, just like a light wash over the whole canvas, over the whole paper. And then finally we do our golden color, which we kind of go back in and kind of go over the red area, and then just finish up at the bottom here like this. Now you have just a little bit of time to work in a little more color if you want. You might take a little more cadmium yellow, a richer, beautiful, more like that. And then you have time to add in a little more rich paint to get a little bit more color in there if you want. If you think it looks a little light, it's going to dry lighter, so maybe you want to go in and do it like I'm doing here. And then one more time up top with the blue, with the alizarin crimson. You still have that, again, that little bit of time to work in a little bit of paint, but that is it. Right now, that is final. You cannot do any more work on this. It has to be dry now. You have to let this dry at this point. So you only have that first run, that first glazing, and you can only maybe go over it once. So you can go over it one time and then maybe quickly go back in and add a little more richer, vibrant color to it. Once you have your first kind of glazing on there, you can still work that and add a little more, again, more exciting color into it. But then once you do that second go back into that paint on your paper, then you got to let it be, because if we keep working on this again with more, it's going to start to make a lot of unpleasant looking marks, and like it'll just the look of the wash, it will degrade a lot and look a lot less pleasant. So right now it's looking really pleasant, beautiful looking. All the colors are mixing and mingling on there, and we're just going to leave it just like that. And that's all you're going to want to do on your final first wash of your actual painting, your finished painting that you're working on. But this first dry run will really help you a lot, because you'll sort of practice that process, that method, and then now we're going to go in and do it on our finished painting, and you'll see how much easier it will go on our finished painting. So what I'll do is we'll take another quick break, and what I'll do is I'll dry this with a blow dryer so that you can kind of see how it looks when it dries up a little bit, and you'll see the final kind of end result once it's dry 100%. And that's the key to the glazing technique, is once you get this first wash on like this, you have to let it dry 100%, and then you can go back over and do your darker washes on top, which we're going to do just in a few minutes or so. But what I want to do is dry this one off quick first, so you can kind of see how it's going to look when it's in its finished state of being dry, that first glazing. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the tape for a second. You'll barely notice, and we'll come right back and we'll see what it looks like when it's completely dry. Okay, so we did some blow drying of our paper. This is our practice sketch here with our paints. I did blot up some of the puddles of water that were around the bottom of this here with my tissue, like so. But you can see that the area within that rectangle that we drew with the pencil line, that's all looking fine. So that's the main thing when you're going to do your finished painting, which we're going to start in just a few seconds. You just want to remember that, you know, you'll dry up any kind of puddles of water as you're working, and we'll kind of show you that too as we're working on the next next part of this video. But I'm hoping you're excited, because we're going to start our finished painting now with this same exact technique and method, the glazing technique, same colors, and we'll get started in just a second. But I wanted you to see that now this is completely dry 100% with a blow dryer. Then now we can go over with our darker washes, the mountains, the saloon, the stores, the roadway, some of the weeds, tumbleweeds, and some of the fence posts and the road. We'll put that all in the final painting, but I just wanted to get that first glazing sort of covered here in a practice run. And this way, when you go in to do your final painting, which we'll do just in a second, you'll have that practice down, and it'll actually make things go a lot more efficiently for you. Okay, so let's come back in a second or two. I'm just going to remove all of this, and then we'll get started. All right, so let's get started now. Let's remove this here. So we're just going to lift this up. That's our finished painting. And we're going to go back in again. Now, with this, I'm going to use a little bit of a larger brush. We started with this one, but now I'm going to use a little bit of a larger brush for this finished painting here. It's a little larger than our swatch. I will start with some fresh, clean water, so I'll empty out my water bucket. And just start with some fresh, clean water. You can use, I don't think it's necessary to use 2 water buckets. You could use 2 water buckets. Some people like to use 2 water containers, one for like rinsing off the brush and then the other one for when you're painting. That's fine too. But in any case, we're kind of ready to start working on this. But the main thing we want to do now is we want to go in and get our paints first in our palette. So again, I'm mixing up some good amount of paint and water, as you can see. Okay. Then we're going to go in and get some alizarin crimson, more alizarin crimson with water. Rinse off the brush a little bit, and then I go in and get my cadmium yellow, and I mix that out a little bit. Cadmium yellow can sometimes you need to almost like put it into the palette and mix it around a little bit, because sometimes it can be a little bit, you can get some thicker portions of the paint that might kind of like cause some streaks in your painting. So you want to kind of mix each one of these good, mix them around well so that they're nice and consistent and smooth, the washes and the water in there. Okay, and you can even mix around a little bit like that if you wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary. And now we're just going to do the same process again, which we started with, which is start out with fresh, clean water. My water has a little bit of, looks a little bit yellow from the cadmium yellow. That's all right. But then all I'm going to do is dampen the paper. I'm not going to flood the paper with water at all. I'm just going to get on a good light wash to dampen the paper. So all you want to do is dampen your paper right now, like that. I'm using Arches rough paper, the orange cover. And again, that's all I'm doing is dampening the paper. One time across, working it in to the fibers of the paper, and that's pretty good. There's no puddles anywhere. If you do have any puddles at the bottom of water, no problem. You just blot it up as you go across like this at the bottom of the painting. If you, my table's a little bit at an angle, maybe a 10% angle. So my working board that I work on is on maybe a 10% angle, 15% at most. All right, so now we're ready to put our first wash on, and again we have all the colors pre-mixed, ready to go. First glazing, and then we just go in and grab our blue, cerulean blue, and start right up on the top. If you feel that you need to go a little darker, mix in a little more, mix it in, and just go right across like that, and smooth it on down like that. If you need a little more thicker paint, no problem, mix it in. Okay, then you rinse off the brush, Go in and we grab some of our red, alizarin crimson, and then work it up into the blue like so. Like that. And then the yellow, the cadmium yellow, which is down here a little more. Maybe a little more red down there. So you can adjust the colors the way you want to, but I'm going with the orange and red. Like that, down here. And I'm working that up a little bit too into the blue, just a touch. Might even go with a little bit of orange. Maybe a little bit of orange and red. Like that. A little more alizarin crimson. Again, you have time. You have time to mix on your paper, especially if you're using arches. You will have time to mix a little bit more, like this, for your first wash. You can dry off your brush on a tissue or paper towel and take off any excess water that might be on there. And then you can dry off the excess flow of water that's coming down the paper, like that. And that should be fine. Again, you do have that little bit of working time with better paper. If you're using like Arches or Fabriano paper, Buckingford, there's other really good papers out there. If you have a more quality, high quality paper, and let me say that using rough paper on this painting is much better. So if you can use rough paper and use the best quality you can kind of get, find, but it'll work on any watercolor paper. You just have to remember that more quality paper means you have more time to work and add more additional washes as you're working on this. If you have a less quality paper, you're just going to want to do it in one wash. You're not going to really want to go back in. You might go back in a little bit and work a little more additional color, but you want to be quicker. So you have more time with a high quality paper, watercolor paper. You have less time to do your first wash, your first glazing with a little bit of a less expensive paper. So you just have to remember that. You just want to get business done real fast if you're doing a little bit less expensive paper. If you have more expensive paper on here, you have a little more time to work, and it'll be a little more, kind towards you. So your paper is going to be a little bit more kind towards you if you're using the more expensive papers. But the less expensive papers work fine too for you. You just have to remember you have to work quicker, and you don't have as much time to kind of like keep working the colors around, and as you saw that we did just now. But now is our time where we're going to let this dry 100%. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to let this dry. I'll use my blow dryer so that we can keep working quickly and keep working through the painting. But at this point, now we're ready to just take a quick break and let this dry. It has to dry 100%. And you'll notice that when it dries 100%, the paper will become tight again, and there won't be any buckles like this. Right now, we added a lot of paint for that first wash, so the paper is buckled like this. So that's all we have to remember, and we'll be ready to start our darker second glazing in just a few. So let's come back when this dries. All right, whoa, we did a little change here. You can kind of see that in the video. What I wanted to do is kind of focus in more on the final glazings that we're going to do on our painting right now. So I wanted to zoom in on the horizon line here with the distant mountains and our saloon or country store here, western store here, and we have a few other bits of subject matter throughout this landscape here going across on the bottom of the page. So all we're really going to need now is sepia tone paint. So basically, I don't really keep sepia tone in my palette, but I use it a lot. A lot of times I use it for figure painting, portrait painting. But the basic thing with sepia tone is it's basically like a burnt umber, but a little bit darker. So you could use burnt umber if you wanted to for the rest of this painting here, with maybe a touch of maybe some either I think I use basically ivory black. I think if you mixed a little bit of ivory black and burnt umber, you'd have a sepia tone. Sepia tone is pretty much. So I'm going to put some sepia tone there on my palette, and that's all. So again, you can improvise and use some burnt umber and ivory black or Mars black for your sepia tone. I think that would work okay. A mixture of those. My sepia paint that I use is Winsor & Newton. And then what I'll do is I'm going to use my number 5 Da Vinci travel brush, which is a synthetic travel brush. It comes with the, I'm trying to think what palette it comes with the Schmincke palette actually. So my new Schmincke palette came with this number 5 travel brush, which is a really nice brush. It's got a good point, and it's kind of good for, maybe smaller compositions where you need fine detail work. So we'll use this, and I think this should be fine for the rest of the painting. So what I'll do is I'll go in and we'll start doing the mountains. Or maybe let's start with the saloon actually. So I'm just going to go in and get some of that dark sepia tone straight paint with a damp brush. I don't want to use hardly any water here. Use very little water, mostly straight paint. And that should be fine. And then I'm going to take that distant horizon line there. I'm going to go across like that. And as you can see, I'm just trying to get the mountains, the distant mountains, painted in. You can rinse off your brush and get a few highlights by just using a damp brush and lifting up a little bit of paint. And then just like that. Sometimes that makes a good effect where you kind of lift up a little bit of paint. You can dab up some paint too with a tissue. You just have to be careful that you always change and use fresh new tissues when you're blotting up paint, because if you leave too much paint on the tissue and then you go to blot again, it might leave some paint on the paper. So that's the only thing with blotting. You have to be real careful with blotting. But let's keep working here. So let's do this peak here of this mountain. And I think quite a bit of these mountaintops are darker darks, and then they get a little bit lighter in certain areas, maybe toward the bottom. So now I can just take a damp brush. I rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of water from the brush on the tissue. And then I can just sort of work that paint down to give it a little bit of a lighter wash. Like that. Go. So you can kind of see I'm just working the damp brush on the mountain, and we'll paint around that ranch house there. maybe that's dark there. So now you can see that we have a little bit of now I'll start to bring some of that paint from the mountain right over into the building here, the saloon or the store. It could be anything you want it to be. You can just in your mind come up with something that you think it might, whatever you want it to be in your painting. It's your painting. You can have it be whatever you want. So we have that. You can blow it up a little bit to get a little bit of light there, maybe. And then we'll get some dark paint here for there's a break in the roof here, like that. A couple of shingles there, some shingles, marks of shingles there. A little bit of a darker dark under the eave there. There's also a window there. And damp brush. Like that. And we're really coming along well here, so let's try to maybe work over here now. Let's try to get some of these mountains in here. And with mountains, they're fun. You don't have to particularly... You can adjust them or make them a little different than what your pencil lines are. No one's going to know the difference. If you want to change the shape of your mountain a little bit, that's no big deal. I would stick to what you originally have. I wouldn't go off that pencil line too much, but if you tend to, for some reason, somehow go off that line, that's not a big deal. It's your painting. You can change things as you go. And as you can see, I'm just getting my sepia paint, straight paint, with just a little bit of a damp brush, and I'm just getting it in all my darks here. I'm painting around that little bit of a ranch building over here on the left. And as you can see, there's a little more light over here on this mountain. So and what else do we have here? I'll do this ranch house here, like that. And then you can add in some fence posts and maybe a couple of cactuses here and there. You can just add in some nothing too definite. You're just going to want to add a little bit of wash, a little bit of some marks on the paper. Doesn't have to be anything perfect. maybe some bush-like marks here. Some up. Go with some darks too, maybe a couple of darks. So here you'll make a little bit of some different marks on the paper. Here you have your road. So we're just going to have a little bit of the marks in the road here. Like that. And then here we're going to have some more weeds and things like that, some bushes. And I mix them up with darks and medium tones. So some of these marks are like, you can see a little bit lighter like I'm doing right now. Then I go in and get a little more stronger paint. Like that. Maybe I'll make this line right here along the building all dark. Like that. And then as we go this way here, we can get some of the lighter medium tones in like that. Like that. And I think we're really coming to a conclusion here with a very good look at the glazing technique. A couple of, there might be some cactuses over here. Have fun with this. This is a fun painting you can do over and over again. And there's some bushes and things along the road here. Maybe there's some weeds and things. Again, cactuses are popular in the western scenes, so we'll put a couple cactuses in. Then maybe we can tie in a couple darks here. And I think that's good. Maybe we could make this a window over here too. Maybe there's a door over here. Okay, so again, you can improvise, create some of your own ideas in this one too. But I think this is really a fun painting to do. We learn the glazing technique here. I think this is a lot of fun again. This is so much fun just to kind of improvise a little bit as you go with the washes here toward the end of the painting, where you can do some interesting things if you want. Maybe you want to do a larger painting like this, where you can do it in a larger format, maybe like an 18 by 24, and add a few more interesting things. You can kind of develop the idea larger if you want. for your composition. But I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you'll keep joining along with us. I hope you'll subscribe. On the right-hand side below, there's the subscribe button. So below on the right-hand side, you'll see that subscribe button. It'll have little notification bells when you hit subscribe. You just want to click all notifications. This way, whenever we have new videos coming out, right away you'll be notified that when you're opening up your YouTube application, you'll just see that we've made a new video. That's all it is, really. There's no other anything happening with that, as far as you won't get any emails, you won't get any text messages or phone calls or anything like that. YouTube, just the subscribe button basically just informs you that we've made a new video, and so that this way you can be kind of up to speed on our work here. You're always going to be watching the videos, even if you can't always get to the painting. You might be very busy. We're all busy. We have hectic schedules. No worries. If you can't get to a painting, you can always save it or come back to it later, or you can just watch it in your leisure time when you maybe have some time just to watch through and see and hear all the terminology we're using, the colors, the techniques and methods that we're using. And in this way you're ahead of the game. And then if you come back to paint it in a week or two when you have a little more time on the weekend, let's say, or whenever is your time where you can free up some time in your schedule, then you'll already be ahead of the game. You'll have seen the video one time, and then when you're working on it through the second time, be a lot easier to accomplish the painting in a more successful way, because you've already seen it one time, you've walked through it. And we kind of did the same thing too with our walking through and doing our first practice run with our glazing technique, the first wash. We did our first wash practice run, we mixed the colors, we got it all in, then we did our finished painting. And that is also, again, another idea of just kind of going through something first and absorbing some details and some information, and then when you go back a second time, it makes it so much easier, because you're already kind of prepared for everything, and nothing will seem like it's kind of throwing any wrenches in the works, as you're working through a part of the painting. All right, so again, thanks so much for coming by. And I always mention too, my new book, down in the description box below, you'll see my link for my new book. You can go to Amazon, pick up my new book. If you're working on those paintings in my book as well in your free time, you're going to pick up so much practice time and a lot of skill when you work through those paintings. They're all created. They're the best of my paintings over the last 5 years, so I'm kind of giving you the best kind of material to work with, so that you're going to be practicing in a really high-level fashion with the best works that I've been doing. So I feel that you'll benefit a lot from that. So again, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming by. We'll see you soon on the next video, just in a few days or so. And happy painting, everyone. Enjoy the watercolor journey. It's a great journey. It's a fun journey. Let's keep practicing. Keep coming back here again, please. Just watch my videos, even if you're not going to work with them, on any given point in time. Just watching is going to really be helpful to you if you get busy. I'm the same way. Sometimes I get very busy and I can't always draw and paint. So I'm always trying to watch videos myself on YouTube and my DVD collection, and looking through my books. I have a lot of archived books from all kinds of different watercolor artists. So I'm hoping you're doing the same. Try to just get as much information as you can, and keep working with that. And we'll see you soon. Okay. Bye-bye.